Before we start talking about systems that support our decision making, we need to start thinking about types of decisions that we'll be forced to make and we need to make in order to add value to our organization, whatever organization type you are in. And there are a number of ways we can think about our decision making process, but one of the frameworks that is well aligned with the types of technologies that can support those decisions takes a look at the nature of our decisions that we have to make, and separates things into three types of decisions. So you have a structured decision. So this is a type of decision where it's almost like if you think you're a novice cook and you need to follow the cookbook exactly. So there is a recipe, you need exactly these type of ingredients in order to make this recipe, the size of those ingredients and the amounts, and really you can in a way automate this cooking process because there is no deviation. You do it the same every time you do it, and it becomes standard operating procedure in a way. And we have these type of decisions in an organization all the time, and actually what we consider structured decision seems to be changing over time, and some things that we thought were extremely unstructured or at least to some degree unstructured, we are finding out that there is underlying structure to it, and as we are able to replicate it, we can use systems to help us make those decisions. So, for example, processing on payroll, running copies of certain report, doing certain things every day or every month. This is a very typical type of a job that you might have as you maybe have an undergraduate degree, your first job, your internships or mentorships, or even if you have a longer career, you might be just fine in a job that's primarily a structured decision where there is a lot of discipline and automation. Then there are decisions that are semi-structured, meaning we benefit a lot from using systems to help us retrieve information, to inform us, and we have some aspects that are highly structured, therefore that information is useful for us and the models that it comes with, and we can use the system. But at the same time, there are components to the decisions that are unstructured, where we don't do them often, some of those components. And for example, creation of a forecast in a company is something that has some aspects of structured decision making. There are certain inputs that you would always use within your own setting, metrics that are maybe relevant to your line of business. You might reach out to product managers, Salesforce for back support to give you some of the drivers behind your forecast. But then you'll have to start doing some projections based on that. And there'll be a lot of assumptions that you'll be making in, and those assumptions can change over time. Your choice of the assumption. There could be elements of intuition even in it, right? So that becomes a typical semi-structured decision. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the unstructured decisions. So those are the one-time decisions. Rarely would you have a cookbook for that. Because you just do it so infrequently. But that's where you can use your intuition, your knowledge, your wisdom that you have over time, so that your gut tells you to do certain things beyond just the information retrieval that you have, and certain things like product rollouts in terms of the R&D. There might be some of that intuition as well as other elements, and that would be an example of an unstructured decision. Now, I think if you think of these decisions as purely like three types of decisions, it's probably a mistake, because every decision has components that are maybe dominant, so that there's mostly structure to it, and then there are some elements that are unstructured. So you can almost think of it as three-dimensional view or two-dimensional view, that some decisions have can be high on a structure and a low on unstructure, or there could be a mix that creates a semi-structured decision. Beyond the nature of this decision, what you need to think about is the level of organization you're part of, and that's also going to drive your decision making. So if you embed these three types of decisions along the organization, the horizon of your decision. So if you're making operational management decisions that are shorter term versus, on the other hand, strategic management decisions that are longer term, multi-year type of a thing, and then you have something in between that is able to link your strategy longer term with these day-to-day activities that are maybe operational. In all three elements or management layers, you will have three types of decisions, except that in maybe in a strategic management one, you will be mostly doing unstructured and semi-structured decisions. You're paid for that so that you can make those decisions that lack some structure. While on the other hand, if you're part of the operational management, you could be deployed without a lot of experience because there are standard operating procedures, because there is a lot of structured decision making in there. But even if within there, you will see that there is a decent amount of space for decisions that lack structure, and this is where you're going to be challenged when you go into your first job, where you think, show me what to do and I'll do it well. You will be starting to face some decisions that are semi-structured. And it's very important for us in the College of Business to start working with you on developing these critical thinking skills, analysis skills, so when you are presented with a semi-structured decision or even unstructured decision, even though you don't maybe have enough domain expertise and that intuition that's based on the experience in the subject, you can still bring in this critical thinking, the right way of pulling all the assumptions, looking all the alternatives, pros and cons, so when you do make that decision, you can clearly tell people why you did it and kind of defend it, even if it's potentially an outcome not what you want it to be. So your first job might be in a payroll, processing some kind of a file that says, hey, these are the fields, need to be in there, populate them, send that file to somebody else, goes to this approval, gets processed, there is an extract, goes into a system, and that's it. But you might be in a condition, in a certain situation where maybe you're in accounts receivable and you know that your customer owes you some money and you gave them certain parameters when they have to pay, and let's say they get out of those parameters. What do? You can certainly follow certain procedures, but at the same time, is everything documented? Do you give them some slack in some regards because of your understanding of other relationships that you have with that customer as well? So in accounts receivable, there might be some decisions that are semi-structured, where it's you retrieve the information to help you guide into your decision making, but there is still some unstructured decision making you have to make. Or it can, feel like very unstructured. Let's say your payroll system breaks down. Your job that has supposed to run on mainframe or some kind of a computer system failed. It's 11 o'clock at night. You get called as maybe a supervisor and say, you know what, we can't run our payroll file in time for people to get paid. What do you do? Who gets the priority? How do you schedule those queues, right? Do you pay the C-level people first? Do you pay the line people first? There is a lot of unstructured decision making there that needs to get done, even at the operational management level. Then when you move into this tactical and a longer term, you can start seeing, like I mentioned, forecast as a semi-structured decision, or some kind of a decision that that one department would benefit from, and the other part would see this and not as advantageous as the other department. So you can create some conflicts. Now, nowhere in the book will you be taught in the College of Business necessarily that there'll be two departments that might have competing goals, but in the real world, be aware that you will find situations where there are going to be competing interests to some degree and a lot of politics and silos within the company, and you have to be mature at that point to be able to deal with those decisions, resolve those conflicts when they occur. Or if you move into more seasoned strategic management roles or the decisions that are strategic in nature, this is where a lot of decisions are going to be unstructured and semi-structured. This is where you kind of earn your buck because you can cash in on your experience or on your intuition. But as we are using systems that have a lot of things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, visual displays that simplify extremely complex situations into something that's much easily to digest. You can see how the systems can help us almost be equalizer. When you don't have a lot of years of experience, you can very quickly gain some of the insights and knowledge from existing environment by using information systems that were maybe not available 10, 20, 30 years ago, and all you had is the wisdom and intuition based on the years of work in the company. So before we go and move on into a discussion of systems, what I'd like you to now do is go to our textbook, and you will see there a small section that talks about phases of decision making. This is just a generic model that you can apply to any decision that you make. It talks about 4 phases: intelligence phase, when you're trying to kind of survey the landscape, the problem. You start then moving into design phase and coming up with what will be the criteria and potential solutions that you will analyze based on that criteria, so that you can move into the choice phase, where you will say, I will solve this problem by selecting this option for me in terms of creating a decision, and then you are implementing that choice in an implementation phase. So on your own, please go and read that little section, and then you will see below the video a mini assignment just to make sure that you are able to understand this content. So please complete that, and then we will be moving on with the rest of the module.